Well, welcome back to Untitled Common Sense. It's been a while. I haven't posted in quite some time. Part of that's just been, I don't know, man. The general series of events going on here in America is just, I don't know, it can be a bit much. I mean, I can make a video every day about what I don't like about Trump and how the Republicans are doing this and what the far right is doing that, but none of that really moves the needle. It's just me venting, me complaining, me joining the raucous clamor of YouTube to say the same thing that's been said a million times before. But I do want to do something with this channel. I do want to do something with what I've begun here. I like what I'm doing here. I just need to find a better direction and purpose or some way to really make it effectual. And I guess there's no better way to do that than by doing. So I took some time off just to kind of reassess how I'm going to attack this. So just bear with me. If you like what came before, hopefully you like what come now. It won't be too different. And we'll see if we can find our footing as we go along. So today's episode is a little bit of a, it's going to be pie in the sky. One of the things that I think might be important for us to do is a little thought exercise. Hopefully, Donald Trump's tenure won't be as disastrous and as long as we hope it is. However, if he does happen to leave, the question is what then becomes of the American government? Because, like it or not, he has irrevocably changed the way the American government operates, how it's perceived to operate, and what people feel they're emboldened to do. His attack and his testing of the checks and balances have exposed grievous weaknesses in the checks and balances of three different branches. So I think it's important that we start thinking of solutions of what we want to see once he's out of office, because reforms need to be made. After seeing what he's done this time and seeing what the Republican Party specifically is capable of doing, how much they're willing to bend and break what we have here in America, and bend and break it in such a way that they are actively against the law of the land, shows that we need to safeguard. The Constitution needs to be bolstered. The branches need to be redefined and clarified. And we need to really, really be vigilant about what people can and can't do. And I'm not saying that we go and become just as draconian as the Trump administration wants to be. But if law is going to be followed by everybody, because keep in mind, all this that Trump is doing, it will trickle down to the rest of us. And there will come a time where the common man is like, I don't have to do it if the president doesn't have to do it. I don't have to do it if the government says they can't do it. And you're going to see like open rebellion and stuff like this. And then it's a breakdown of society. So to prevent that, I think it's absolutely important that we think about what we want this country to be and what it needs to be to withstand the next, 400 years or so, give or take. So with that said, we're going to do a little bit of musing. I was thinking about this the other day, like what are some of the things that I actively want each of the branches to do to kind of strengthen them and to bolster them so that regardless of who gets into the presidency next time, we won't have any of this just brazen disregard for the law or the subterfuge and grifting of the system, because there's a lot of that. And we know that the Republicans won't stop. They've gone this far, then they've already gone off the deep end of depravity. They care nothing for the rule of law. They care nothing for governing people. They care nothing about what the country's reputation is. They've shown that by just doing what they're doing in Congress and with this administration, they have shown that they feel that the American, and I'm not going to use brand because I hate brand. It's a corporate term, and America is a country. It's a nation. It's supposed to be something better. It's not some slogan. Okay, it's not cheap. It's not a commodity. It's supposed to be something that will last and endure. So America's reputation has been sullied and has been slandered, and so we need to find a way to strengthen that going forward. Now, I mean, obvious executive branch. This is probably the hardest one. I don't know if I have too much for it, and I hope this opens up a conversation for everybody else. Maybe you can throw some ideas. But we're going to have to, I think the first thing is to explicitly state what the president can and cannot do. And I mean like explicitly. And there's going to need to be some redefinition of what executive orders can encompass, what the president can do, what constitutes an emergency, which gives a president extra powers, things like that. Because Donald Trump and his team have found ways to stretch the credulity of what the president should be able to do in doing their, his executive powers, using his executive orders. And it's done a number on the country, and it's done a number on the other branches. Right now, the Congress, the legislative branch is, I would say, ineffectual. Because they are kowtowing to Trump, they've left themselves ineffectual, and they are steadily acquiescing more and more power to him so that he can get his agenda through without having to bother with them, which shows that, like, if it's that easy, then there needs to be some type of safeguard to prevent something like that. So definitely we need to readdress what executive orders can encompass, what executive powers, what executive power looks like, and what the extent of that is. Obviously, we'll have to balance that with the courts, because Trump's saying, "Oh, you can't have an appellate court tell me what to do. I'm the chief executive, only the Supreme Court." And it's like, law has to be law. And maybe you can make the point that the executives, anything that has to do with the executive branch is tried by the Supreme Court. You can make that point. I'm not saying that, but law is law. And he is showing that he doesn't respect the law, then there needs to be consequences. What that is will need to be determined, but it needs to be in such a way that we don't effectively, castrate the presidency, because it does need to be ineffective. It does need to be able to have some latitude to make decisions without being bogged down in Congress. But it also does need to understand that it has its place in time. In much the same way, and Trump wants to think of America as a corporation. Well, if America is a corporation, the CEO does answer to the board of directors. And I have an idea who the board of directors should be, but that's later on in the video. But that's what I would do with the executive branch. We need to really properly define what the president can and can't do. Executive orders need to be reined in, or at least there needs to be specific conditions or specific types of things that an executive order can do, or else they need to be agreed upon by either Congress or the judicial branch, something like that. But you definitely need, and the president can't be immune. I'm sorry. That was the worst mistake but you know what? Number one, all branches need to be baked in some type of neutrality to them. This ideological mess that has gotten into everybody, like everybody's either right or left, it's gotten so bad that the country can't even be a country. It's just ideologues trying to enact their vision of what the world should be instead of working towards a working vision of what this country can be. So we need to find ways overall to partisan proof the offices, because these agendas are getting out of hand on all sides. So that's the number one. I would say for the legislative branch, get money out of Congress. They should not be able to make any money from stocks, not at all. In fact, the moment that you join Congress, whatever you have should be put into a 401k, however much you want to put into a 401k pension. And that's the only thing you can have. You can't have any stocks. You can't have any businesses. You must divest completely. There should be no lobbying, none at all. Okay, none at all. Like done. Congress needs to be held to an age limit. Got too many people just dying, or some type of physical fitness check like they do with the president. I think if these Congress people are going to be for every 2 to 4 years, then upon accepting that role, you need to get a wellness check, and they need to do that, and they need to do it every so often. Maybe like every year you're in Congress, you get a checkup just to make sure your mental acuity is there or you're healthy. That's the way it should be. Like no ifs, ands, or buts, because we got too many of these old people dying, and then they don't say anything, and nobody sees them in Congress. Like, how can you run a country and just not show up? That's like the most like we elect these people to do a job, and they're over here just like ducking it. And granted, you got health concerns, but like, yo, if you can't do the job, you got to go. The country is bigger than your immediate needs. Take care of yourself, but you got to get off the field. Again, we need to also proof some way. Congress, I think, of all the places, needs to be, well, probably the judicial branch as well, but Congress most necessarily needs to be proofed against these partisan politics. We need to remove as much as of that as possible. I think that for elected officials, they're doing a lot of thinking about themselves and not about their constituents. It seems like their actual civil service takes a backseat to their own enrichment. So there needs to be, we need to redefine what a senator and a congressman is. And within that scope, they need to be answerable to the will of the people. And this goes into something later on, which I want to add to it, a fourth branch that I think we need to develop, like for real. It needs to be in the Constitution, on the books, and it needs to be instituted. That will address this. But Congress needs to be held accountable to doing things that actually benefit the country. None of this filibustering, none of this deadlock bullshit, none of this sneaky underhand tactics to get your guy in. Like, fuck all that. You need to be about making this country good while you are in office, and stop stymieing every effect. You know, too much of your own, like at a certain point, you just need to remove yourself from it and just do the goddamn job. That's what we need. We don't need these people going off and becoming senators for 80 years and only trying to do the shit that they want to see. It's not about you. You are not the country. You are a representative of a body of people in that state. You need to act accordingly. There should be no reason why a Republican senator from a red state that's poor should vote against Medicare. No reason at all. None. It's ridiculous. They're not even working for us. They're working for themselves. So we definitely need to work on them. They need to be held accountable. They need to be unable to enrich themselves. And we do need to take the money out of their political things. Like, they should only be able to use whatever they can garner from the people to, campaign. No outside donors, no outside interests, because it's too much. We've seen what happened. It becomes a toxic mess. Now, the judiciary branch, first off, get rid of the for life time limits. Get rid of that shit. I would be okay with maybe 10 or 8-year term limits. And again, same stipulations as with the presidency and with a legislation. You got to take a fitness test, got to be your mental acuity there. That's what it has to be. In addition to that, I think the Supreme Court justices, there needs to be, for the judiciary branch, there needs to be a body of neutral, I got to turn that off. There needs to be a body of neutral arbiters who keep the Supreme Court justices in check. Because they need oversight. Because these justices are too extreme. They're too divergent. They are obviously corrupt. They're taking money. They're like the most non-partial, people you can possibly be. They're trying to shape the country's laws to fit their ideological agenda. They're not playing for the same team. They're playing for their own team. They're not for America. They're for themselves and the people who enrich them. That's got to go. There needs to be an oversight committee that can monitor the activities of the justices and call them accountable. There needs to be a group of selected judicial people who can bring a judge to bear and ask them why they did this, what's going on, and if need be, to pass judgment and punish them if they're found to be unlawfully, like, committing any acts of, like, corruption, or any bias, because our courts can't succeed if they are bogged down by the same ideological BS as everything else in our system. Like, we've gotten too partisan. I understand you might think grass is greener over here and this is better, but, like, to the effect that our country's been so stagnant the way it is and that we become so divided, nah, we're done with that. So that's the first thing that needs to be happening. Second thing, I think the courts need to find ways that as you go further, the lower courts need to be faster. If something fits within a lower court, it needs to be faster. The fact that our court system is so slow, it can't handle this deluge of this flood the zone bullshit, because we have to flood the zone proof. We have to put up a dam against all that flood the zone bullshit, because this tactic is too effective and it just ruins everything that we're supposed to be doing, like, for real. So I think the lower courts, we have to make them faster. We have to find a way to really adjudicate all these cases that come before it in a much expedient manner, so that if something happens, we can react and respond to it in a timely fashion. Because we've seen our courts with the Trump administration get overwhelmed by all these different cases of unlawfulness. And that's at the highest level. So I can only imagine what happens at the lowest everyday civil level, like me and you. So that definitely needs to happen. If that means we get more judges, so be it. And again, I think this oversight committee for the whole judiciary needs to also be looking at what these judges are doing. Like that one judge, I forget his name, he's in Texas. And that's where all of, like, Republicans get their stuff passed in Texas, because they'll have it adjudicated in Texas because this one judge has proven that he's down for the cause. We do not need partisan ideologues in these positions. We need neutral parties to arbitrate the law. The law is supposed to be without bias. It's supposed to be without bias. And the fact that we're getting all these biased ass judges doing biased ass things, trying to make their agenda better and to get it on the dockets, that can't happen. America can't work if it is not fair, or at least as fair as it possibly can be. Because right now, the scales are tipping in one way, and everybody's trying to get their way, and it shouldn't be that. So I definitely think some type of, like, I don't know, council, or almost like what the FBI is, where it investigates internal things going on with the whatchamacallit. I think there needs to be some judicial, like, judge advocates, ethics, bureau, where they have lawyers who go after, if a case is brought up, they go after certain judges and lawyers and find out what's going on, and to make sure that this was fairly adjudicated, or was bias involved, or was there some ulterior motive. And that needs to happen so that we can get these courts, like, straightened out, so that we don't get these judges that lean this way and they're obviously, part of some agenda. We definitely need that to happen as well. So that would be something I think needs to be added. And to be fair, I actually kind of agree with giving the marshals to the judiciary. The executive branch has shown that they don't care what the judicial branch says, because in the end, they don't have an army. What are they going to do? We're going to listen to some judges. They're going to gavel us to death. They have no power, especially if you're not following the law. If you're following the law, you're good. But if you're not, they have no power. So I think something like the U.S. Marshals should be under their jurisdiction. I think they need at least some type of official, peacekeeping force to enforce, peace enforcement body to enforce their rulings when they need to. If somebody's not coming through, send the marshals after them. The president's not looking up. Hey, get the marshals over there to get them. Like, there needs to be some teeth to the judicial branch, but not this current Supreme Court, not this current judiciary. Once we reform everything, then yes. And like I said, at that advocate, judiciary body that, ensures by unbiased, neutrality throughout the judiciary, then we can do that. Because again, I don't want Supreme Court justices thinking they have their own personal army or anything like that. Now, I mentioned earlier in the video that there would be something that would hold, that I think will hold the judiciary. Like the president, I think we kind of do need to adopt, in a little respect, a CEO, board of directors mentality. But in this one, it needs to be expressly written in the Constitution that there's a fourth body, and that fourth body obviously needs to be the American people. And I know you might be saying we can't have all 200 million people, blah blah blah, in the country, helping run it. And yes, that's why we have representatives. I get that, but I do think the American people need to step up and be part of the government. If we're going to really call this a democracy, the people really need to have more of a say over the government. And not in such a broad sweeping way where they're like passing laws like the legislative branch or making executive orders like the presidency or determining the laws in that capacity like the judiciary. But more so that much like directors, board of directors, they sit back, allow the company to do what it does, but then chime in about the direction they would like to see the companies going. So case in point, in my world, and this will have to be built out. I think the United States government will need to build an app that all American citizens will download on their phone or can access on a website. And through this app is the way that the people will communicate to the government. And what the people will do with this civil body of citizens, the citizens union would do is basically, I think it should go this way. Congress and the president work together when the new president, maybe every year, but let's say when a new president is elected, to set an agenda of what we're going to do this new presidency. And then that goes back to the app that we the people have, and it shows us what these are the things that the Congress and believe should be worked on, are important enough that we should devote our resources to this administration resources to getting these things done. And then the people for the presidency, they'll have that. For the for the legislative, they'll have that. And then everybody gets to pick their top. They get to number what they think should be the top spot, which should be first, gets the most priority, second, third, and like that. And I think this should be tied to your tax returns. I think we have to make it that every person does this. And if you don't, maybe there's a penalty, or maybe if you do participate actively, there's some type of subsidy. Like maybe you get 10% subsidy off your living expenses or certain things that are healthcare, something like that, so that by being active, you are gaining tangible benefits. Like if you don't participate, you're leaving money on the table, because we have to incentivize it. Because let's face it, the American people just don't give a fuck about anything, and they just want to sit there and drink beers and watch reality TV, and they don't care if their country's in a shitter unless it's a shitter right outside their house. Then they got a problem. So we need to make sure that the American people are part of the process, and this even goes back to and to make sure our future generations are also part of the process. The Department of Education, if it's still there or if we rebuild it, needs to offer civic classes in the U.S. government from whatever grade they think is perfect to do it, all the way up until possibly college. Maybe you have to take one in college. Maybe you should take a college level civics course before you leave college. But in high school and grammar school, you need to be learning about the American government, what it can do, what it can't do, what each of the branches does, what your rights are, so that by the time you're an adult, you understand enough of the system so that when all these politicians spout bullshit, you understand like what's really going on. Because the ignorance of the American people is a part of the reason why we're in this we're in the current predicament we are. So you get the app. Each individual person lists what they think should be ranked, and then when all the results are compiled, boom, we have a tiered list of what we think the focus should be for the American people. And now Congress and the presidency has their marching orders. Okay, the American people want to see, let's say, infrastructure was number one and healthcare was number two, and let's say environment was number three. Those three initiatives will probably be the first to really be like, okay, let's get our best brains on it. Those will be prioritized. And as you go further down, less and less priority. But they are things that are actively being worked on. And in that way, Congress will have their marching orders, because another problem is Congress just doing random shit. They're not doing anything that helps the people. So we, the people, need to give them direction. If you are the senator in my state and the congressman in my state, you don't need to be worrying about whether Palantir can build a factory here, or whether we should uplift the EPA stuff. No, we're not going to do that. You're going to do what the people want. And I guess you can also do this at the state level. You are at the national level, and you also have state level. This app can work at the state level. And then you also give the martial orders to your state legislators as well, because they need direction. Because what they're doing is only to enrich their pockets. There's no reason they should be passing all these bullshit laws that really nobody's asked for. They say the American people care about it, but they don't, because they don't move the policy or the needle in any way that's marketably doing anyone any good. So we tell them, these are things we want you to focus on. Let's get to it. And if things come up, we can have a quick vote that gets shot to the people, and they can say, should we pursue this? Should we not? Blah, blah, blah. But we should have our marching orders for each of the fiscal years, or however we want to structure this. I don't know if we should do it by administration or by term. Maybe it is by turn. Like, once a person gets in, these are the agendas they want to do. If you want to see them continue things from the old administration, they got to do it. Like, things like that, because we don't have the continuity. Everybody's trying to do their own damn thing. Nobody's doing what they need to actively make this country better, because that's the problem. We don't need to make America great again. We need to make America good again, because we are rotting to the core. It's just the way it is. Okay? We're not a country that's a contender anymore, as shown by our choice of leader. So I think, just to wrap it up, the American people needs to be an active fourth branch, and we need to determine what type of policy is setting. Like I said, I'll give the executive and the legislative branches the ability to suggest certain things, but we determine what of that is important. And if we think something is important, we write that. There needs to be much more accountability from our governmental leaders. It just needs to be, because they're not doing anything for anybody. I don't care if you're on the left or the right. Everybody's fucked up. The Republicans only want to see rich people get richer. They don't give a fuck about anybody that they're supposed to represent. You can see it in their policies. Everything is about making you have no health care, destroying the environment, trying to pass through legislation that just doesn't recognize people who are different. They're all about against immigration, when knowing that immigration is a good thing. We live in a global world. I'm sorry. Everybody needs to stop this bullshit where America's this lone monolith. No, we do and need too much from the rest of the world for us to be acting like little bitch made people. We need to start realizing what the world is and preparing for that. And I know people want to have factory jobs and stuff here, but unfortunately, your leaders elected and the corporations elected to put that shit to another country. So you need to pivot, or we need to change the way this government functions. Either or. Probably a little bit of both. So we need to stop all this fear mongering and pointing the other finger at that's the problem when it's not, and start actually getting solutions done. That's the only way. That's the only way. So the American people definitely need to be in. And again, if they're the fourth branch, then that means the American people could tell you, no, we don't like that. You need to stop. Because that I think it's hard to hear the collective voice of the country. But like, we need a way to actively, in real time, tell our government, no, I do not like this action. No, you need to stop that. And maybe there should be something in the Constitution that says if they get so much amount of negativity against a certain issue, then it needs to stop. And then there needs to be a hearing addressing that issue's its merits to see whether we continue or we scrap it. Like, for real. Because this executive branch doing what the fuck it wants, what Congress is just doing what the fuck they want, and we are powerless to stop it, because it's basically just people doing what they want to do. We have very little to say. We have to call them and harass them to tell them we don't want it. They should know what we want. So there needs to be a little bit more reciprocity. We need to have more definite ways to get to these people and tell them we are not feeling that and they need to be better. So I'm going to leave it there. This is very rough. Like, this is just me thinking off the top of the dome. I kind of thought about a little bit here or there, but I'm really interested is if what do you guys think? What things do you think we need to reform in our government going forward after this Trump term? It can't just be the same old. Because if it happens, because if we go back to what status quo, there's just gonna be another Trump again who's gonna do it, and this time this dude might have a competent cabinet of people who will get shit done and really change the face of the country. I'm not trying to live in Putin's Russia. I'm not trying to live in Kim Jong Il's North Korea. No, we're not about to have a dictatorship here in America. No. I will fight tooth and nail for that. That's not what I grew up in. That's not what I want for my country. I'll be damned if I let a bunch of fools and clowns take this country down the shithole. Like, fuck no, man. I live here too. I got children who live here too. So it's very important that like we get our stuff together and make sure that we clamp down on this going forward. So with that, I will try to be a little bit more regular with my updates. And I'm going to try to be more solution oriented. You know, we can complain all day and night, but we need to start thinking about active solutions about how we want this country to be run and how do we want it going forward. I don't want a shithole of a country that nobody likes, that has a horrible, destroyed environment because of reckless greed by a select few who seem to think they don't live on the planet Earth as well. So if you're down with that, get on the leave comments and all that other stuff. I won't say like and subscribe, but if you feel like it, please do. And let's get at it. Take care.